My name is Quinn, and the moment I walked into my parents' house carrying that manila envelope, I knew everything was about to change. The same dining room where they'd celebrated Marcus with champagne and confetti for 28 years straight was about to become the scene of the most satisfying conversation of my life. My mother looked up from her phone, barely acknowledging me. My father didn't even glance away from his newspaper. Marcus sat there with that smug smile he'd perfected since childhood, the golden boy who could do no wrong. They had no idea what was coming. Have you ever been invisible in your own family? Let me back up. I was born on March 13th, exactly 2 years after my brother Marcus. You'd think having the same birth month would make things easier for my parents to remember. But somehow they managed to turn Marcus's birthday into a month-long celebration, while mine passed by like any other Tuesday, every single year. When Marcus turned 10, they rented out an entire community center and hired a magician. When I turned 10, my mother handed me $20 at breakfast and said, "Get yourself something nice, sweetie," before rushing off to help Marcus pick out his new bicycle. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I was being petty, that birthdays were just arbitrary dates, that love wasn't measured in parties and presents. But when you're a kid, watching your brother blow out candles on a 4-tier cake while your own birthday is acknowledged with a grocery store cupcake left on the counter with a sticky note, something breaks inside you. Not all at once, slowly. Like a crack in a windshield that spreads a little more each year, the pattern continued into adulthood. Marcus's 21st birthday was a weekend trip to Vegas, all expenses paid. Mine was a text message at 11 p.m. saying, "Happy birthday, sweetheart," with a string of emojis. His college graduation got a backyard party with 100 guests and a catered dinner. Mine got a card in the mail. When he bought his first house with money borrowed from our parents, they threw him a housewarming party and gave him $5,000 for furniture. When I bought my small condo with money I'd saved for 6 years, working double shifts as a nurse, my mother asked if I was sure I could afford the mortgage. I learned early that complaining only made things worse. The one time I mentioned feeling left out, my mother got tears in her eyes and said I was being cruel, that she'd always tried her best, that maybe if I wasn't so sensitive, I'd be happier. My father said I needed to stop keeping score like a child. Marcus just laughed and told me to stop being jealous. After that, I stayed quiet. I smiled through every forgotten birthday. I showed up to every one of Marcus's celebrations with a gift and congratulations. I played the role of the supportive sister who didn't need validation, but I noticed everything. I noticed that Marcus's job as a regional sales manager was constantly praised at family dinners, while my work as an ICU nurse was met with concerned questions about whether it was too stressful. I noticed that when Marcus got divorced, it was his ex-wife's fault for not appreciating him. But when my engagement ended, I was asked what I'd done wrong. I noticed that Marcus's opinions were treated as wisdom, while mine were met with polite nods before someone changed the subject. The worst part wasn't the inequality. It was the gaslighting. When I pointed out that they'd forgotten my birthday again at age 26, my mother insisted they'd called me, even though they hadn't. When I mentioned they'd never once thrown me a party, my father said, "That's not true, we took you to dinner that one year," as if a quiet meal at Applebee's compared to Marcus's yacht party. They rewrote history constantly, making me doubt my own memories, my own reality. I started documenting everything, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. I needed proof that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't imagining the disparity. Photos, receipts, text messages, bank statements. I kept it all in a folder on my laptop labeled family. I didn't know what I'd ever do with it. I just needed to know it was real. Last year, Marcus turned 30. The party was legendary by family standards. My parents rented a banquet hall, hired a DJ, invited 200 people, and presented him with a check for $50,000 as an investment in his future. I watched my brother, who made twice my salary and had already received hundreds of thousands in family support over the years, accept that check with a speech about how blessed he was to have such generous parents. Everyone applauded. I stood in the back with a glass of wine I didn't drink and felt something crystallize inside me. Not anger, clarity. 2 weeks later, my 30th birthday came and went. No call, no text, no card, nothing. I waited until evening, thinking maybe they'd surprise me. They didn't. At 8 p.m., I called my mother. She answered cheerfully and chatted about her garden for 10 minutes before I finally said, "Mom, do you know what today is?" There was a pause. "Tuesday? It's my birthday." Another pause, longer this time. "Oh my God, Quinn, I'm so sorry. It completely slipped my mind. We've been so busy with the house renovations. You understand, right? We'll make it up to you." They never did. That night, something shifted. I wasn't hurt anymore. I wasn't sad. I was done. Done hoping they'd change. Done waiting for them to see me. Done setting myself on fire to keep them warm. For the first time in 30 years, I felt free from the need for their approval. And with that freedom came a dangerous kind of clarity. I started digging. Not for revenge. Not yet. I just wanted to understand where my parents' money was really going. They'd always claimed they treated us equally, that any difference was in my head. But the math didn't add up. They'd given Marcus $50,000 for his birthday. They'd loaned him $200,000 for his house, which he'd never paid back. They'd bought him 3 cars over the years. They'd paid for his wedding, his honeymoon, his MBA. Every time I'd asked for help, even small amounts, I was told money was tight, that I needed to learn financial responsibility. I had access to the family trust documents. My grandfather had left a substantial inheritance to be split equally between Marcus and me when our parents passed. I'd never looked at the details before. I'd trusted them. That was my first mistake. What I found made my blood run cold. Over the past 15 years, my parents had been making loans to Marcus from the trust. Loans that were never paid back. Loans that were eventually forgiven and documented as early inheritance distributions. Loans that came exclusively from my half of the trust. Marcus's half sat untouched, growing with interest. Mine had been depleted by nearly $400,000. My hands shook as I read through the paperwork. Every loan was technically legal, signed off by my parents as trustees with the justification that Marcus needed it more and that Quinn is financially stable on her own. The documents were buried in 100-page trust reports that I'd been sent yearly but never read carefully. They'd been stealing from me for years, hiding it in legal language, counting on my ignorance and trust. I didn't confront them immediately. I'm not impulsive, never have been. Instead, I called a lawyer. Then I called an accountant. Then I made copies of everything. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia who'd handled medical malpractice cases, looked at the documents and let out a low whistle. "This is financial elder abuse in reverse," she said. "They're trustees with a fiduciary duty. They can't just raid your portion of the trust to fund your brother's lifestyle. The loans need to be legitimate, properly documented, with repayment plans. These are gifts disguised as loans. Can we do anything about it?" Patricia smiled. "We can do a lot, but I need to know what you want. Do you want your money back? Do you want them held accountable? Do you want this quiet or public?" I thought about all those forgotten birthdays, all those dismissive comments, all those years of being told I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too needy. I thought about Marcus's smug face at his birthday party, accepting money that was partially stolen from me. I thought about my parents rewriting history, gaslighting me, making me doubt my own worth. "I want justice," I said, "and I want them to understand exactly what they've done." The plan came together over 3 months. Patricia filed a petition with the probate court to remove my parents as trustees, citing breach of fiduciary duty. We demanded a full accounting of the trust and immediate repayment of all unauthorized distributions. We also sent a letter to Marcus informing him that the loans he'd received were fraudulent distributions from my inheritance, and that we'd be pursuing repayment. But that was just the legal side. I wanted something more. I wanted the same thing they'd always denied me: to be seen. Marcus's 31st birthday was coming up. My parents were planning another lavish party, this one at a country club. 250 guests, open bar, live band, another obscene check, no doubt. I called my mother and asked if I could give a toast. She seemed surprised I was even coming, but agreed. That would be lovely, dear. Marcus would appreciate that. I prepared my speech carefully. I practiced it until every word was perfect, every pause calculated. I wasn't going to yell or cry or make a scene. I was going to tell the truth calmly and clearly and let them sit with it. The party was everything I expected: elegant decorations, expensive champagne, a crowd of people who barely knew Marcus but showed up for the free food and social networking. My parents worked the room like politicians, soaking up compliments about what a wonderful son they'd raised. Marcus held court at the center of it all, laughing loudly, already drunk on attention and Grey Goose. I waited until after dinner, after the cake, after my parents had given their speech about how proud they were of their son. Then I clinked my glass and stood up. The room quieted. My mother beamed at me, probably relieved I was finally playing the doting sister role. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I began, my voice steady. I wanted to say a few words about my brother Marcus and about family. Marcus raised his glass to me, grinning. Marcus and I are exactly 2 years apart. We share a birth month, March 13th and March 15th. For 31 years, I've watched our parents celebrate Marcus's birthday with parties like this one. Elaborate, expensive, memorable celebrations. And for 30 years, my birthday has been forgotten. The room went still. My mother's smile froze. My father set down his drink. I'm not exaggerating. I kept records. 28 out of 30 birthdays completely forgotten. No call, no card, nothing. The two they remembered, I got a text message. But that's not why I'm standing here tonight. I pulled out my phone and brought up the photos I'd prepared. I'm standing here because I recently discovered something interesting about our family trust: the inheritance our grandfather left us. It was supposed to be split equally. Marcus and I were each supposed to receive approximately $600,000. I looked directly at my parents. My father had gone pale. My mother's hand was at her throat. But over the past 15 years, you've loaned Marcus nearly $400,000 from the trust. From my half. His half has never been touched. Every loan was forgiven, documented as an early distribution from my inheritance, without my knowledge or consent. You didn't just forget my birthdays, you stole my future. The silence in that room was absolute. 250 people holding their breath. Marcus looked between me and our parents, confused. He hadn't known. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. As of this morning, I've filed a petition with probate court to remove you as trustees and recover the stolen funds. You'll be receiving the lawsuit papers this week. Marcus, you'll be named as a co-defendant since you received the money. I'm sure you had no idea it was stolen from me, but legally, you're required to return it. My mother found her voice. "Quinn, stop this. You're making a scene. We can discuss this privately." "Like we discussed my birthdays privately?" I asked. "Like we discussed why Marcus got hundreds of thousands of dollars while I was told to be financially responsible? I tried private for 30 years. Private means silent. Private means invisible. Not anymore." I turned to address the room. "I don't tell you this for sympathy. I tell you this because it's the truth, and the truth matters. My parents taught me that some people don't count as much as others, that some children are worth celebrating, while others are worth forgetting. That family means loyalty from the children they don't value, and exploitation by the parents who should protect them. I'm done accepting that. Marcus, happy birthday. Mom, Dad, you'll be hearing from my lawyer." I set down my glass, picked up my purse, and walked out. Not stormed out. Walked. Calmly, with my head high, while 250 people watched in absolute silence. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could feel the weight of their stares, the shock, the whispers that would start the moment the door closed behind me. My phone started ringing before I reached my car. I didn't answer. It rang for 3 days straight. My mother, my father, Marcus, aunts, uncles, family, friends. Everyone wanted to tell me I'd ruined everything, that I was being vindictive, that this wasn't how family handled problems. I blocked them all except my lawyer. The lawsuit moved forward. My parents tried to settle quietly, offering to repay half the money if I'd drop the suit and stop embarrassing the family. I refused. Patricia pushed harder, and the probate court ordered a full forensic accounting. The deeper the accountants dug, the worse it got. There were more unauthorized distributions. Money that was supposed to be invested had been used for my parents' lifestyle expenses. The trust had been grossly mismanaged. The judge wasn't amused. In a scathing ruling, she removed my parents as trustees, ordered them to repay the full amount plus interest and penalties, and appointed an independent trustee to manage what was left. Marcus was ordered to return the money he'd received. My parents tried to pay his share, but the judge wouldn't allow it. He had to liquidate assets. The house they'd helped him buy went on the market, his new car, his investment accounts. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The truth had done its work. The family fractured, of course. My parents told everyone I destroyed them over a misunderstanding. Marcus posted on social media about greedy siblings who turned on family. Their friends rallied around them. I was painted as the villain, the ungrateful daughter who'd publicly humiliated her parents at a birthday party and then sued them into poverty. But something unexpected happened. People started reaching out. Cousins I barely knew told me about their own experiences of favoritism and financial abuse in the family. Friends from nursing school shared similar stories. Strangers who'd been at that party found me on social media to say how brave I'd been. I realized I wasn't alone. My story was common. The only unusual thing was that I'd fought back. The money came back slowly. My parents had to set up a payment plan. Marcus refinanced his life to pay his share. It took 2 years to recover most of what was stolen, and the legal fees ate a chunk of the rest. But it wasn't really about the money. It was about being seen, being valued, being told, officially and legally, that what happened to me was wrong. My parents never apologized. They maintained they'd done nothing wrong, that the trust was theirs to manage as they saw fit, that I'd destroyed the family over greed. We haven't spoken in 3 years. Marcus sends hostile emails occasionally, blaming me for ruining his life. I don't respond. Some bridges need to stay burned. Last month was my 33rd birthday. I spent it with friends I've made over the past few years. People who remember my birthday without being reminded, who celebrate me not because I'm perfect, but because I matter to them. We had dinner at a nice restaurant. They gave me thoughtful gifts. Someone baked a cake. It was simple, warm, real. As I blew out the candles, I thought about that girl who used to wait hopefully for a phone call that never came. I thought about all those years spent trying to earn love from people who decided I wasn't worth it. I thought about the woman I'd become, someone who knew her worth wasn't determined by how others valued her. My wish was simple, that I'd never forget how far I'd come. People ask me if it was worth losing my family, worth the legal battle, worth the public confrontation. They expect me to have regrets, to wish I'd handled it differently, kept quiet, forgiven, and moved on. But here's what they don't understand. I didn't lose my family. You can't lose something you never really had. What I lost was the illusion of family. And in its place, I found something better: self-respect. The lawsuit wasn't revenge. Revenge is about making someone hurt because they hurt you. What I did was demand accountability. I refused to be invisible anymore. I refused to accept a narrative where my pain didn't matter. I forced them to acknowledge, in a court of law, that what they did was wrong. That's not revenge. That's justice. And justice, real justice, doesn't require the other person to learn or grow or apologize. It doesn't require them to see what they did. It only requires that you stop participating in your own diminishment. It requires you to say, I matter. even when everyone around you insists you don't. That's the part people get wrong about these stories. They want the villain to repent. They want the family to come crawling back with apologies and tears. They want a reunion where everyone hugs and the music swells. But real life isn't a movie. Sometimes the people who hurt you never understand what they did. Sometimes they die believing they were right and you were wrong. And you have to be okay with that. I am. My life now is quieter than it used to be, smaller. I work my shifts at the hospital. I have dinner with friends. I travel on my time off. I'm in therapy, working through the damage of growing up invisible. I'm learning what healthy relationships look like, what it means to be loved without having to earn it. I'm learning to trust my own perceptions instead of accepting others' versions of reality. Some days are harder than others. I still have moments where I doubt myself, where I wonder if I overreacted, if I was too harsh. Those are the days I pull out the documentation I kept for so many years. The forgotten birthdays, the bank statements showing where the money went, the text messages and emails that prove it wasn't in my head. The evidence grounds me, reminds me that I wasn't crazy. I was just being told I was. Last week, I got an email from a young woman who'd been at Marcus's birthday party 3 years ago. She just filed her own lawsuit against her parents for similar trust mismanagement. She thanked me for showing her it was possible to stand up, to demand accountability, to refuse to accept less than she deserved. She said watching me walk out of that party had changed her life. I cried reading that email. Not sad tears, proud ones. My pain had mattered. My story had helped someone else find their voice. That's worth more than any inheritance, any apology, any birthday party. People treat kindness and forgiveness like they're the same thing, but they're not. Kindness is treating people with dignity. Forgiveness is absolving them of consequences. I can be kind without forgiving. I can wish my parents well from a distance without having them in my life. I can acknowledge that they're complex people who probably did their best, while also acknowledging that their best was harmful and I deserve better. That's the nuance people miss. It's not about revenge or hatred. It's about boundaries. It's about saying, I love you and I release you, and I will not let you hurt me anymore. All three can be true at once. If there's anything I'd want people to take from my story, it's this. Your pain is valid even if no one else sees it. Your experience is real even if others deny it. And you have the right to protect yourself, even from family, even when it costs you everything, even when the world calls you wrong for it. I spent 30 years trying to be small enough, quiet enough, understanding enough to earn love from people who had already decided I wasn't worth it. The day I stopped trying was the day I started living. Not perfectly, not without pain, but authentically, as myself, taking up space, being seen. My name is Quinn, and I am no longer invisible. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's refusing to suffer silently anymore.